Hey everyone, my name is Jet and you're watching Board Game Talk on inthirdperson.com. Most of the time when I play board games, I play board games either at home or at someone else's house. It's usually inside someone's house. But when I'm playing out and about in a public environment, it's almost always at a board game cafe. As a resident of Toronto, we're spoiled here with a lot of board game cafes, as the concept in North America kind of started here, with Snakes and Lattes often being credited as the place that started the whole idea of a board game cafe. So when I do play games in public, it's usually at Snakes and Lattes, which is a wonderful venue. Well, they have two locations and they're both awesome. Or at the Riddle Room, which is actually an escape room venue that also happens to have board games, and they're also pretty great as well. There are a number of reasons why I would choose to play board games at a board game cafe versus at my own house, at a friend's house, or at a friendly local game store. For one, board game cafes oftentimes have a great selection of games. I think in particular, shoutouts to Snakes and Lattes, who have this giant wall of games at both of their locations, and there's so much selection there and so much variety. It's not just hardcore games or mainstream games, it's a really good mix of both. And regardless of who I'm there with, I can always find something to play. Another reason why I love the Board Game Cafe experience is that they have game gurus that are specifically there to teach you how to play these games. Now, one of the hardest aspects of the board gaming experience is learning the rules for any given game, and most of the time these board game gurus have done an awesome job of teaching us how to play these games, and thanks to their help, there are a lot of games that I discovered and ended up buying because they were very helpful in teaching. Just a couple games I wanted to shout out that I learned and enjoyed first at a board game cafe. One of those is Carcassonne. This one is a classic. It's a tile placement game where you're placing down tiles and helping to build a city and trying to claim different parts of the land. I thought this game would have been super boring, and no, it was recommended to us by someone at a board game cafe, and it ended up being awesome. So much so that this ended up being our guest book at our wedding, where we had our guests sign the tiles, and at some point we're going to frame that all up as this one big city that our guests helped build with us, and I think that's awesome. Another game that we discovered through playing... Another game we discovered through board game cafes is Splendor. Now, I gotta admit, I hate the theme of this game. The idea of being a gemstone merchant and flipping your different gems to get more gems and gem cards. I probably wouldn't have played this game had I not gone to a board game cafe and have the board game guru explain how the game worked. And so I'm still not in love with the theme, but man, this game is so fun to play, and one that I would highly recommend you check out. More recently, Steph and I went to the Riddle Room, and we played a handful of cat-themed games, and one of those that we ended up taking home is Kittens in a Blender. So in this game, players have hands of cards which have cats on them and certain actions, and you are trying to blend other people's cats inside a blender while safely stowing away your cats in a box. I know the theme sounds horrible, and but the game is actually really fun and not that gory. It's just a silly way of scoring in the game that's actually quite fun, and one that I'm thankful that I got to try out at a board game cafe first. Board game cafes also oftentimes have excellent food, so during my times at Snakes and Lattes and at Riddle Room, they've always had great food. And I think my favorite part of the board game cafe experience is just the atmosphere, especially when compared to your friendly local game store. When I go into a board game cafe, I feel like it's a good mix of all sorts of different types of board gamers. There's college friends who are just hanging out, wanting to have a good time, have some food, have some drinks. There are teenagers there hanging out with their friends, parents playing with their kids. Just a wide variety of people who are all there to enjoy a variety of board games. Versus my friendly local game store, and this is I can't speak for all of them, but I feel like when I go to a board game store and there's that play area, it's almost always dominated by people playing competitive card games like Magic the Gathering or games like that. And not to say that that's a bad thing, but as someone who's not involved in any of those particular scenes, it just doesn't feel all that welcoming to sit down and play board games there. So when it comes to playing board games at a public venue, I would take the Board Game Cafe over pretty much anything else any day of the week. If you've never played board games at a Board Game Cafe before, I highly recommend grabbing a couple of friends and heading over to the closest one near you and enjoying the benefits of a great atmosphere, great game selection, and great food, and of course, the staff that are more than willing to help teach you all of these new games you've never tried before. So that's it for today's episode. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and also check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, comic books, and other nerdy pursuits. So until next time, I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com, and thank you for watching.